There should not be any word that where you say, I'm quitting for revenge. What does that mean? It doesn't mean, I don't understand that concept. So for me, it is about what culture are we building in the first place?
There was an article, I don't know if it was really an article, LinkedIn posts all kinds of, interesting, weird stuff. But this particular thing, basically they post stuff and they write a paragraph and then they have all these people who chime in on it. And they call them top perspectives. Anyway, the title of this is RTO Prompting High Performer Exodus. There was a study out of the University of Pittsburgh with researchers from Pitt, Baylor, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Chung Kong Graduate School of Business. And they found that firms in the S&P 500 have been seeing abnormally high turnover following return to office. In addition, this has been more pronounced, as one might imagine, with female workers.
Yeah.
Right? At 12% versus 4% of males. I mean, I'd speculate why that is. We can talk about that.
Yeah, like to hear
and that, of course, this is high performer turnover, which now not new people, not entry level workers.
Yeah.
So not only does it take longer time to fill these roles now, the hiring rates are dropping by about 17%. So, what are your thoughts about this?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I read this article and I read it again and again, and every time I got more pissed off.
Yeah.
And I had to stop reading it because I don't get it at all here. This is resentment boiling over, revenge quitting. These are words I've never heard of before. I think we are dealing with a post-COVID mental health issue that is still prevalent. And I'm gonna say this. I think that this underlying theme here, and again, every article I read is, let's look between the lines. The underlying theme is we are in a mental health crisis. And this is a perfect example of using these words like revenge quitting, like resentment when you work for somebody, is a perfect example of your mental health is not in the right place if you're using words like that. There should not be any word that where you say, I'm quitting for revenge. What does that mean? It doesn't mean, I don't understand that concept. So for me, it is about what culture are we building in the first place? They should not be looking over their shoulder if they're fully engaged. They should not be looking for other jobs if they're fully engaged. They should not be resentful if they're fully engaged and part of something bigger themselves and a good culture, a servant leadership culture. We all go through this, leading with empathy, all this. Mm-hmm. And if that's truly the case, then why are we even talking about revenge quitting? I'm trying to wrap my arms around it, Carol, and I'm having a hard time after reading this thing. And again, over and over again, I get the concept, but again, is this just another writer trying to fuel the fire here? Or are they actually trying to give us some information that we can use? Now, the one thing they did say, and I'll turn it over to you, is that, combat this, bosses, they can prepare by focusing on empathy and meaningful communication. And seriously, are you shitting me? I mean, that's the suggestion. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that, because if they have to teach people how to do that, that ship has already sailed and it's over. Game, set, match. And now you have a management culture and not a leadership culture.
Right. Well, listen, it is, you may say this is a pitiful situation that we have to teach people how to be empathetic and how to communicate. But guess what? Unfortunately, we do. Right?
Yeah, we do.
So, whenever, and I'm sure I've said this before on our show, that I'm always sort of mortified when I have a founder or CEO say to me, yeah, that kind of work's just not really important for us right now. Good luck. Let me know about your turnover rates. Let's. How many people do you think are looking for jobs right now that work for you? Because that's not important to you.
Yeah.
Because again, as we say, that will solve your problems.
Yeah.
Learn how to communicate throughout the entire organization. Learn how to have empathy. Learn how to treat, look at your people as you're the employee, they're the employer.
Yeah.
The minute you start doing that, things will start to shift.
Yeah.
How many leaders are out there doing the jobs of their employees because either they don't want to spend the money to either bring somebody in that can help work them through this, or they're just like, well, I'm the leader, I need to work 90 hours a week. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a former client who was working 80, 90 hours a week, was killing her, founder, who was spending half of her time, which basically means a 40-hour week work or more, managing things she had no business managing. She's the one who admitted it.
Yeah.
I was producing a document for her. She said, as we were talking about, just send it to me. I'll fix it. I'll work on it. I said, no. You're paying me a lot of money to do this. You just need to, this is damaging you. It's damaging how you lead your company.
Yeah.
So I think, that's a lot of, this is all part of it. Right? Is, forcing your people to come into the office. Listen, I get that. I worked in an office for years. Okay. And, when I left that company and went out on my own to build a company, was I alone more? Yeah. Did I have to manage that? Yeah. But I didn't work less. In fact, I probably worked more.
Right.
And, this whole, why are we forcing people to do return to work? That's the question we need to be asking. Right. So if, I would assert that it's more pronounced in female workers because female workers working from home are still doing most of the responsibilities around family.
Yeah, you got that. That's exactly
okay. I would encourage anybody to point to evidence to the contrary. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, they're working full-time jobs and they're still in carpool lane.
That's right. And the employee disengagement at 40 to 55% is a consequence of this. And the really important thing is that the people that are losing are their top level people. Yeah. And if, I know this better than anyone after 30 years of professional headhunting, those people ain't easy to replace.
No, the money.
Well, there's a lot of money involved. There's so much to it.
Productivity. Right? Yeah.
That's right. And I just don't, why are we not asking people what, we're thinking about doing a return to office. What are your thoughts about that? That's what a talent-centric culture does.
Yeah.
You ask your employees. You have a feedback of culture. You talk to them. You don't just say, hey, guys, guess what's happening here? Musk did it. There's plenty of other companies that have done it. Yeah. We're having a return to office and, fuck you if you don't like it.
Yeah. Walmart did it, right? We talked about that. Yeah, we talked about Walmart, right? Doing that.
Yep. Walmart. Right? Same thing. Exactly.
This is all about, and I there's another article that I kind of double clicked on where, this is about, they're calling it the Great Detachment, right? And again, putting Gen Z in there. And again, me with this. I'm like, you know what? It's not just Gen Z, right? Yeah. But, the Gallup study that I know full well with disengaged cultures, because that's what I speak about. How do we get more engaged? That's costing us $8 trillion globally. This is a numbers game that leaders, CEOs, board members, stockholders ought to really be involved in. So this is not just a mental health issue. This is not just, they're whining they don't want to come back, or they're whining that, whatever they're doing. This is not just about that. It actually is about the bottom line, which leaders should be obviously paying attention to. So what does it come down to? The advice that leaders need to invest in building trust and value in their employees. It's a broken record We hear about this all the time. All these articles that we're getting them all the time, right? Carol, you and I, we're lifelong learners. We're reading all the time. To a fault, 90% of these articles are all about, how do we fix this? Well, we fix it by having an engaged culture, and a culture of trust, and a culture of servant leadership, empathy. And that fixes a lot of these issues. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And you just said it. It's, why don't we do a survey and say, hey, what if we come back to the office 3 days a week or 2 days a week? We don't just say cut it off. You can't in 2020 say you can work anywhere in the world, have a blast, go to Greece and work in a condo overlooking the have a blast, go to Italy, go to Colorado where you live in the mountains, or whatever you want to do. Go to Florida and play golf in between all your meetings, like I do. and then all of a sudden say, hey, just kidding, come on back 100% of the time. Yeah. Now, you know me, I'm a proponent of building a culture. And to build a culture strong, you do have to be in the same room. You have to touch, you have to feel, you have to have the emotions tied to building that. So I firmly believe that you cannot do that remotely. Right. That doesn't mean 24/7. It means not remotely. And so my advice to leaders that I talk to every day that are wrestling with this because of these issues, I see it every day, is I say, look, don't make it a dictation where you come in 24/7 or you come in 5 days a week. Let's make it something where they can live with. Maybe it's 2 days a week or it's 3 days a week, and have value in those 3 days. Have something that they get value out of both personally and professionally. Yeah. The game's changed, Carol. This is not where I started back in the 80s, you get up in the morning, you drive 2 hours to work, and you work 9 to 7, and then you drive 2 hours home, you kiss the kids goodnight, and you start all over again. The world's a different place. Yeah. We have to adapt, but we can't lose the fact that you need to build a culture.
Right. Well, let's not forget when you started and when I started long ago, back in the olden days, in the dark ages, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. We didn't have internet.
No.
So it wasn't like you could meet online. We didn't have computers. I mean, really?
No, we didn't.
So you had to be in the office. Things were done by, when did fax machines come out, right? Yeah. When I started in search in 1992, you faxed resumes. Yeah. And then called your managers and talked to them about the people.
Right.
So, one of the other things I didn't mention, that study came out of the study, suggested that 15% of top workers, okay, that's really who we're talking about here.
Yes.
Who are remote or hybrid currently, so hybrid is in there, may quit. And this was in financial and tech. That's really what they looked at, is financial and tech. So here's what I have to say about this.
Yeah, let me hear.
That, and it's not negating your point of, talking to people every day, and you still have to talk to your people. Okay? You have to say to them, what are your thoughts about a hybrid work environment? Or to those who are already hybrid, that are thinking about quitting because now that they instead of being hybrid, they have to come into work full time. Excuse me. Or those who are 100% remote have to now be hybrid, okay? Or something like that. Something they're not used to as of late. I think you need to ask them, what are your concerns about this? Why are you opposed to returning to office a couple of days a week, coming in a couple of days a week? Yeah. If somebody said to me that I had to drive, let's say I worked for a company in Denver, somebody said I had to go in 5 days a week. I said that to somebody 22 years ago that I was looking at. I'm not driving to Denver every day. Are you delusional? And the traffic is exponentially worse now, 22 years later, than it was. Right. Traffic is so horrible here. There's so many people here. Yeah. It's like I get pissed off every time I leave my neighborhood. It was developed in the late 60s because there's traffic everywhere. There's no way around it. No matter how I get out of my neighborhood, there's traffic.
Right.
I would say, deal breaker. Now, if somebody said to me, would you mind coming in once or twice a week? I'd say, depends on what time I have to be there, because I'm not driving to or from Denver in traffic. I'm just not doing it. So does that mean, let's say I go on my gym day off, right? I can leave the house by 6:30 before the traffic's bad, 6:15, get to the office, work a day. I wouldn't mind doing that because I wouldn't mind being around people.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But that's the difference is, what are your thoughts, Carol? You live 30 miles from Denver, southeast. The traffic is horrendous. What's it going to take to get you to be willing to come into Denver 1 to 2 days a week? I'd say, here's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
And see what they say. But that's what they're not doing, Rob. They're not asking the questions.
Yeah.
They don't have that culture of feedback where they're saying, well, tell me what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah.
And don't send HR out to do that. Send each person's leader to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to talk to their team. That's who the relationship is with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then report back into their manager, who will report back into their, whatever the food chain looks like. Okay. The hierarchy.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what's missing. So, hi, Mr. Hybrid person. Are you, is it going to take, what would it take to get you into the office every day? I'd probably say nothing. I'm not going to come to the office every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the game's changed. The game has changed.
Yeah.
And, for good or for bad, right? It's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that collaboration is still so important.
Yep.
Right. So this goes back to, here's what I'll kind of say about this, in my opinion, is that we have the technology today that we didn't have.
That's right.
As we said, it's really important how we use that technology.
That's right.
It's really, really important. Mm-hmm. And the simple example is the iPhone for me. And you ask people if they spoke to John. I spoke to John today. Did you speak to him or did you text him? I text him. Well, then you didn't speak to him, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
So, it's a play in words. I get it. And it's a little bit frustrating. But the reality is, learn how to use technology to your advantage and learn how to not have to rely on technology. Rely on the human connection. I mean, that's what business is a human infinite game. I say that every day.
Yeah.
And if business is a human infinite game, how do you accomplish that when you're working alone in your office at home with no interaction? That's all the way to the side. I get it. Now, is there a middle ground? That's what I'm saying. There has to be a middle ground. Yeah. Because you're not going to make a human connection. And then I'm going to go there again, like a broken record: loneliness, mental health, detachment, revenge, resentment. I mean, come on. I mean, we've got to be able to see this. This is not rocket science. As leaders, we have to understand all these words mean something. How do we get rid of them? We have that empathetic leadership. We have that leadership of people. All the things we talk about every week. Come on, this is not rocket science.
No. Rob, I want to go back to your statement about, your boss says, did you speak to somebody? Yeah, I spoke to him. Well, did you actually talk to him? Did you pick up the phone or did you text him? I texted him. And so what that takes me down is to my lowest common denominator: communication. Yeah. Learning how to communicate. When somebody says to you, did you speak to someone? And you texted them, your answer should be, no, I texted them.
Right.
Because you understand what it is to communicate. So you actually are learning about language and what that means. Okay. I shouldn't have to say to you, I shouldn't have to have a follow-up question that says, did you text him or did you pick up the phone? I mean, really?
Yeah, I agree. And it's right on. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you. And I think that it's important that we delineate that fact, right? And we, in the old days, it used to be, do we go back and forth with 5 emails or do we do 2 and say, all right, I'm going to the cubicle to talk to this person?
That's right.
And that's what we used to do. When I built cultures, it was like, you get 2 emails and then you walk over and you talk to that person. In the old days, that's what it was, right? So it was like, I don't want to see an email with 7 threads. That doesn't make any sense to me when email first came out. And, and then you get the deal all caps and they don't realize you're yelling. You don't even realize, it's like, it's like, go talk to that person, make a human connection, speak from the heart, not the head. Yeah. and actually get something accomplished for yourself and for the company, but also for yourself. There is nothing better than a human connection. It releases the right hormones in our body. It's oxytocin, it's serotonin, it's happiness, it's well-being. This is neuroscience for years have proven this. So why are we going against neuroscience to put somebody in a room in their bedroom or in their apartment and not have any interaction? So there is a fine line. And I agree wholeheartedly that the game has changed, but let's not over-rotate to a point where we have major issues, which we're facing right now with resentment, revenge, laziness, all this stuff is disconnected. It's like, these are words we shouldn't be hearing in business. We should be hearing engaged.
That's right.
We should be hearing inspired. We should be hearing empowered. We should be hearing the right words, and we're not. And that's what pisses me off. We have to get back to those words.
Yeah. And not for nothing, we are now in a global economy. We have been for some time. So, what does return to office look like for each company?
Yeah.
Right. That has a global workforce.
Yeah.
So does this mean now companies have had, with offices, offices. So, you now have your whole engineering team in India or in Ukraine or, Central Europe or somewhere like that. Yeah. So do you now say, okay, so you guys all have to be in the office. All our salespeople in Atlanta have to be in the office. All our salespeople in New York have to be in the office, yada, yada, yada. All our engineers, here have to be in office. So, that, by the way, is building a company in a silo. Okay. Because each of those teams and each of those offices have their own culture and relationships.
Oh, yeah.
That's not new, right? I mean, you've worked for large companies. I've worked with large companies over the years. Don't anymore. And what's people aren't realizing is that, you have to build a culture and do that in many, many different locations.
Yeah.
So I still am a firm believer of, regardless of how all this turns out, Rob, you get your entire organization together once a quarter.
No, yeah.
At a minimum. Well, at a minimum twice a year. Yeah. But ideally once a quarter, and you bring everyone in the company to some location somewhere.
Yep.
Spend the money, because especially if you're the problem with a hybrid is you're spending a lot of money on real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, companies are basically paying whatever fortunes they're paying in rent to have people in the office twice a week. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Talk about a waste of money.
Right. Right.
I mean, I don't get that at all. Right. So, maybe you cut back on some offices, but the bottom line still is, bring your people together once a quarter. Just spend the money, especially if you're saving money on real estate.
So true. Hey, look,
fly them all someplace.
And if it costs $8 trillion globally, why not spend a little bit and get them in the office and inspire them and empower them and engage them and make them part of something bigger than themselves, so they're inspired and they're not looking over their shoulder. This all goes back to, they shouldn't even be talking about detachment. That's shame on leadership if they're talking about that. Shame on you if they're talking about resentment. And that's just. Yeah, it's just unheard of. I don't get it. And leaders need to wake up. They need to wake up. So if you're listening, wake up. Wake up and get more involved and change your language, change what you focus on, change your physiology to show up and be present for your employees. And don't manage your employees. Lead the human. Yes. Lead the person. Yeah. It's totally different. That's how I'll kind of wrap that up.
All right. Well, been another fun conversation.
They're always fun. I just don't. I'm like, I really want feedback. I just can't understand where all this came from. People, and please,
let us know. Send a carrier pigeon. Respond to our LinkedIn post. Go to our. When we relaunched the show, we relaunched a new YouTube page. Called Evolving Your Workplace. We want to hear from you. Really, we do. We will engage. We promise.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's make this the year of engagement. Let's make this the year of doing the right thing for the human, not just the employee.
Thanks for listening to Evolving Your Workplace After Hours. I'm your host, Carol Schultz.
And I'm your co-host, Rob Swymer. Don't forget to click follow to hear more. And please leave us an honest review and rating so we can continue to improve and bring you more great stories.
Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.